Welcome to the Stogie Geek Show, episode 66. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Stogie Geek Show. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Wonderful to be here this evening. Unfortunately, it is football season, so our live viewership has declined significantly.
Especially locally, right?
Yeah, especially locally, as the Pats play the Jets. It's okay, don't tell me the score. I'm TiVoing it. I'm TiVoing it when I watch it tomorrow. Which I know is that never happens, especially when the Patriots play.
You will absolutely know what happened by then.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. I'm going to introduce Mr. Mark Jr. sitting across from me.
What's up?
Yes, welcome, Mark Jr. to the show. Stogie Santa.
We got a good show today. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited about tonight's show as well. The listeners are going to be very excited as well when they listen to it. Mr. Will Cooper.
Hey guys, how's it going? I know we don't have Stogie Santa tonight, but I think tonight we're going to have the spirit of Stogie Santa throughout the whole show.
Absolutely. We've got some Oasis cigars for you, or at least one, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I've got a little story, a couple of tips and tricks. Did you guys see that segment I put in there? Don't let me forget that. I've got two little tips and tricks to talk about during our Stogie
We won't let you
week.
forget.
We won't.
Let's see. Let's talk about. You know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna introduce our guest for the show. Barry Stein is here from Miami Cigars. Welcome, Barry.
What's up, gentlemen? How we doing today?
We're doing fantastic. Barry, before we kind of get into your interview, I've decided to. Will, if you could enable your video at some point too. I've decided we are smoking the Anoranzas for tonight. I'm smoking the Corona. Mark Jr. smoking the Robusto, and Will, you've got like a Churchill or a Toro?
Bellicoso.
Oh, Bellicoso. Okay, I couldn't
Yep.
remember which one I sent you.
Yep.
The samples were provided by Miami Cigar. So, Barry, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about our smoke of the week, wrapper, binder, filler, price, sizes available, that kind of thing. Where the name comes from, obviously.
All right, the Anoranzas is based on the Nesta Miranda Grand Reserve 2012, which was the Nesta Miranda with the green label. Mm-hmm. The cigar was originally blended as a Bellicosa, which is not the normal way a cigar is blended. So Coop is smoking the original format of the cigar. You guys are smoking the editions that were released last year at the trade show. They range in price from $650 to $850, and the Corona that you're smoking is only available in a box set, which we make available at select events. It's a size that you can't walk into the store and buy. We just don't sell that size to the retailers. The wrapper is a Nicaraguan Habano Oscuro, and the binder is from Nicaragua, as is the filler. It's made at the My Father factory down in Esteli, Nicaragua, and it's a medium plus cigar. When I smoke it, I get notes of nuts, wood, especially some heavy cedar notes. It's in my opinion, it's one of our best cigars. And it's a cigar that I smoke on a regular basis, which is why I sent it to you guys.
Yeah, I'm digging the Corona so far. I hear what you're saying on the flavors, and it's kind of cool that you can only get this size in the gift set. We drew straws before the show. I don't know what we're gonna smoke. Mark's like, that's really cool. Thank you for sending them.
No problem, and we're going to give away a gift set through your show. I'll let you figure out how you want to do that.
Okay.
But we'll pick somebody in random. You collect the name, the address, and I'll send them the samples.
Okay, yeah, typically we come up with a question, so by the end of the show I'll have a question, because I've got a contest package to give away from another contest we ran, so thank you very much.
No problem.
I wasn't even going to run a contest on the show, but now, before the end of the show, I will have a question, and you will win the, can I call it a gift set? Is it a gift set?
Yeah, it's a gift pack, gift set, sampler.
It's a sampler.
A line sampler?
A line sampler with that special Corona, as Barry said, you can only get in that sampler pack, and that's what we're smoking from tonight. As well as some T-shirts, too. I really love the Miami Cigar T-shirt. It's great. So, Barry, how did you get started in the cigar business?
All right. I owned a cigar shop in Brooklyn, New York, with my business partner, who's a retired New York detective. And it was called at the time. It was called what was it called? Wow.
It was the humidor, wasn't it?
Well, it is the Humidor, and then it was Cafe Cigars, and then it was wow. I'm having like brain block, but it was we were told by General Cigar that we needed to change the name. So we changed it from that name to Cafe Cigars. We never really liked Cafe Cigars, and we settled on the Humidor. The Humidor is still in existence today. It's on 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn. And I didn't smoke cigars until I went in there one day to watch the Yankee game. Very eclectic mix of people. You got Brooklyn wise guys and New York cops all hanging out in the same cigar shop. It was kind of a place where nobody brought their business into the shop. We all hung out, be it watching an old movie, a new movie, the Yankees. If I got in my way, some hockey. And
There you go.
eventually, my business partner's retired detective was a personal bodyguard of John Walsh from the TV show America's Most Wanted. So we started doing work for the show America's Most Wanted, and I started doing some research analysis for my business partner at the time. And that side of our business just took off that we couldn't devote any time to the cigar shop. So we had to sell the cigar shop. And at that point, I realized how much I missed being around cigars and how much I missed the passion of the industry. So I went to an event in upstate New York from the guys that have Atlantic Cigar. And I ran into Sam Lucia from Nub, and he gave me some samples. And he asked me what I thought. And being a wise guy, I was like, oh, they're earthy, they're nutty. And he goes, oh, you should start a blog. I was like, all right, now you're being the wise ass. Anyway, a few weeks goes by, and he sends me a message on Cigar Live, which was a cigar forum that was eventually bought out by Puff, asking how come I didn't start the blog. So I started the blog. I started writing, reviewing cigars. The late, great Gary Yars put me in touch with Miami Cigar. I worked for Miami Cigar for a year as a consultant, and eventually they asked me if I wanted to move to Miami. So January 2nd, 2012, I wound up in Miami, and I've been here since. There's been some ups and downs, a little bit of a culture shock. I'm lucky enough to have some great friends that have helped me deal with that, and I don't ever want to go back to New York. So that's pretty much my story in a nutshell.
Barry's being he's not giving himself enough credit on the blog thing, and I got to say, Barry, you were a big influence for guys like me when I was starting out in terms of the example you set and your writing and just your dedication to the craft. So that needs to be said to the audience here because I thank guys like you. I knew you were going to do that.
But I appreciate your kind words, Coop. At the risk of sounding a little pompous and a little full of myself, it's nice to see that guys that started a little bit after me continue to hold the torch, and so to speak, and they brought their sites up to a level that when they first started, people were like, oh, what's the deal? What's the story? But as long as we're going to, keep up this brown nosing fest, Coop, you got one of the greatest sites out there. Not only do I consider you a good blogger, but you've become a personal friend over the years. So now that we got the ass kissing out of the way, and I feel a little bit like a politician right now. So thankfully there's no babies here to kiss. But,
I'm sorry. So Barry, before the show, you were talking about where the name Anoranza came from. Did you mention that in your introduction?
No.
Okay.
One of the first jobs that Miami Cigar gave me was to come up with the name of a cigar. Every single name that I looked up was taken.
Yeah.
And 40% of those names were taken by one company. And I won't mention the company.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Yeah. So it was bad. And Nestor just said this word, Anoranza. And I was like, what does that mean? So he told me what it meant, and I was like, that's a pretty cool name. So we debated back and forth about how hard it would be to say for somebody that doesn't speak Spanish. So I had him write it down on a piece of paper, and being the only non-Spanish speaking person at Miami Cigar at the time, I looked at it and I said Anoranza, and they were like, that's pretty good. I said, all right, so the name works. So then I was like, all right, what does it mean? And he goes, it's a yearning or a longing for. It's like when you look back on the past. A lot of times when we smoke, we'll look to the past. We'll remember a long-lost love, a grandparent that's no longer with us, a parent that's no longer with us. remember our child's first steps, or our daughter or son leaving to the graduation or the prom.
That
These
that
memories.
one that one vintage Cuban that I had. Sorry, is that
Well, that's a moment of Anoranza. So that's pretty much where the name comes from.
that's cool. That's very cool. So what are some of the other? Are you involved with just the Anoranzas at Miami Cigar? Are there other brands or kind of marketing efforts that you're involved in, or blending, or what are some of the roles you take on?
The one cool thing about Miami Cigar, it's very much a team. While my official title is Assistant Director of Marketing, and I took that title because Nestor's son, may he rest in peace, was a marketing genius, and I didn't want to come down and be the marketing director. Just like the Yankees retire all these great numbers, I felt the position should be retired with Danny. So when they said to make up the cards, and I said, let's just put assistant director and leave it at that. So I oversee a lot of the marketing ideas at Miami Cigar. I'll come up with some of the concepts that we use in our advertisement. I'll come up with some of the cigar names. This past year, I went down to the Dominican Republic for a couple of weeks to learn more about the blending and the factory side of the business at La Aurora, and I got to blend my own cigar, which will be released in a week. And
Nice.
but anything that rolls through Miami Cigar, we do it as a team effort. Be it Hector Paz, our director of sales, Jason Wood, our vice president,
Right, right.
Nista Brander, so on
So,
and so forth.
yeah,
Jimmy Keith.
explain for people what Miami Cigar is, because I mean, you mentioned La Aurora. They're one of the largest factories, right, in the Dominican Republic. So you're a distributor. Do you distribute? Who do you distribute for, and how does that work? That relationship.
Well, Miami Cigar and Company is mainly a distributor, but we make our own cigars.
Okay.
We make them. We don't have our own farms and what have you, so we make our cigars. At factories. Most of our cigars come from the My Father factory.
Hmm.
So like the Nesta Miranda, the Anoranza, the Grand Reserve, the Dano. These are all cigars that come out of that factory in Nicaragua. And we'll take trips there a couple times a year, and we'll work on the blends, with the people at the factory. And we'll tweak them, and we'll go back and forth, add a leaf of Lajero, take out a leaf of Seco, add some Viso. You know what, the Corojo don't work, let's switch it to something else. So as a team effort, we try to find a cigar that Nestor would like if Nestor hasn't made the trip. And sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And we'll bring it back, and Nestor gets final say on everything that we release from the Miami side of things. And then we'll give it to our reps, we'll get the feedback, and that's pretty much it from that side. And then the La Aurora. La Aurora is the oldest cigar factory in the Dominican Republic. It was founded in 1903 by the Leon family. It's still run today by the Leon family, with Guillermo Leon being the head of the factory. And we distribute those cigars in the United States. They have other distributors elsewhere across the world. Matter of fact, next week they're going to be in Germany at Intertabac, which is the European version of IPCPR.
Hmm.
We'll be there as well for Tatiana, which is part of the Miami cigar line. So the flavors, the vanilla, the honey,
Mm.
the blue, all those, that's Miami cigar as well. La Serena is Miami cigar. Um, so, we're a pretty big company, based here in Miami. We got multiple brands. We got our own sales force. We make some great cigars, in my opinion, before I even started working for Miami. Coop could probably tell you that I was a huge fan of the product. And
So, when you look to either develop your own blend or distribute someone else's, what are some of the primary factors you're looking at when you decide what to make and what to market in terms of
well,
from Miami Cigar?
the La Aurora distribution started because of the friendship between Nesta Miranda and Guillermo Leon.
Hmm.
They have a friendship that transcends many, many years. So it was just a natural fit for the two companies. And as for Miami Cigar, La Aurora makes their cigars. We provide input to them, knowing the American market. Um, but they have all final say, of course, on what they release. And it's up to us at that point to choose whether or not we think it'll work for the American market and distribute it here in the United States.
Hmm.
And, they make some cigars that are only available in Europe because the profile of the tobacco just doesn't fit what's wanted here in the United States.
Right.
And but when we come to make our own cigars, like the Anoranza, and we listen to what the marketplace tells us.
Hang on
We
one
listen.
sec. Hang on, Will.
Yes,
If you, when you're doing your lighter thing, if you could mute your microphone,
sure
for
thing.
whatever reason, I don't know why it's coming in really loud.
Yeah, I'm having lighter problems here, as you can hear.
Okay.
Both my lighters are out. I may have to get up here.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Barry. Go ahead.
No harm. So like when we do a cigar here, we basically listen to the marketplace. We read what the bloggers have to say. People like Coop and Jerry Cruz over at Stogie Review. You guys at Stogie Geeks. There's so many bloggers that I'd be here all day if I mentioned the people whose opinions matter to us. And we look at what the trends are. And sometimes we'll just be playing around with tobacco and like how my blend came up and it just works. And then you hope that people like it and it continues to have a place in the marketplace.
Do you worry that listening to those that do journalism and social media and blogging and podcasts, that they're the vocal minority, or you know what I mean? That there's a small group of people that are very vocal about what they like and what they don't like, and that doesn't necessarily represent the market for cigar smokers as a whole?
It's my opinion, and I don't have the numbers in front of me to validate it, but it's my opinion that right now there are two segments in the marketplace. You got the people that are social media savvy. You got the bloggers. You got Instagrammers, people on Twitter. With their liking and what they want to see from the cigar market is much different than your average Joe who goes to the cigar shop to buy 4 or 5 cigars.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Even sitting in the cigar shop, I notice it. You got the guys that want the limited edition, they want what's new, and then after they smoke 4 or 5 of them, they're like, all right, what's next?
Yep.
So it's almost impossible to create a brand right now that has any loyalty. And the limited edition market, in my eyes, has kind of hurt the industry that there's no loyalty anymore. I mean, it's very rare now that you see a brand like Romeo and Juliet or Monte Cristo come along. It's not the way it is now. Now it's all about, regional exclusives, dirty rats, so on and so forth.
Do you try and appeal to both audiences? Because I completely agree. I've seen these two different types of smokers almost emerge in the past few years, or maybe longer, right? There's the guy that buys the same box of the same cigar every week, right? And then there's guys like us on the Stogie Geeks and Will that we buy, like you said, the latest release. We'll buy a few of them, and then we'll smoke them, and we're like, okay, well, let's smoke the next one that comes out and the next one that comes out. So do you produce and market cigars for both audiences?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're lucky about with our relationship with La Aurora is we could, we have our sales meeting every year in January. We get an idea of what La Aurora is doing. And if they're coming out with a cigar that has a segment that's geared toward a certain segment in the marketplace, when we do our own cigar, we're not looking to go after that same segment. We don't want to bastardize sales between the two companies. So we'll try to create something that's a little bit different. So between the two companies, we're lucky enough to have that we're blessed that we could go after both marketplaces.
Yeah.
We just treat them as they are two separate entities.
Do you ever worry from a marketing perspective that you've got too many blends and brands and sizes of each one, and that you're overwhelming some of the consumers?
Yeah, I mean it's stuff we have discussions with. I mean, if you look at the La Aurora portfolio, it's a pretty big portfolio, but their sales have maintained steady over the years. When the new cigar comes out and the spike of the new cigar comes out, it manages to hold on and it manages to stay. Like if you look at the La Aurora 107 or the Guillermo Leon, and even now the Fernando Leon, which has got a 93 in Cigar Insider, a little shameless plug there. And it from when their sales came out and to their sales now, the numbers have remained steady. So hopefully that answers the question. Because I lost track of the question.
What's your best selling size?
It's probably Robustos. It's
across
probably
all the lines. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the same, with everybody. I think the top three sizes are what? Robusto, Toro, and 6x60.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So the 6x60s or the 60 ring gauge plus are hot in the market. Is that what do you think the reason is for that?
I think it's misconception of value.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
consistent
you know,
answer with everyone that I asked that question to. Yep.
yeah, you get a $10 Robusto and a $12 6x60. The
Yep.
average consumer, and I mean no disrespect, is going to go to the 6x60 because they're thinking they're getting more value.
Hmm.
I don't think you're getting more flavor. So, I mean, a large percentage of the flavor that you get is from the wrapper. So when you're in a 6x60, you're diluting it. I mean, it's almost like going into a bar and ordering a rum and coke and telling them, you know what, I want it in a bigger glass. You're only going to give me that 2 ounces of rum, but in a bigger glass, now I want like an extra 6 ounces of coke.
That's a really good way of putting it, Barry. Yep.
You're not going to taste the rum anymore. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet you when you go to the Dominican, you have some fabulous rum when you're out there too.
Yeah, Coop hasn't been to the DR yet, but we're going to change that, I think. But Ron Barcelo, we drink at Camp David. We drink Ron Barcelo rum and Sprite, and it's Guillermo Leone's drink. Most people do rum and coke. He does rum and Sprite, and we've named it El Gato Grande, which is the big cat. This is Guillermo Leone's nickname. So
Andres Galarraga might have something to say about that.
yeah, you can get in line.
Well, what was I going to ask next? You got me sidetracked off on the rum now. Will, did you have questions for Barry? Sorry, I had
So Barry, right now you're also taking the plunge into the world of blending with the Kilo project.
Thank you.
Right.
That's what was my next question.
Okay. You want to talk a little about that?
No, go ahead. You know more about it than I do at this point. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want me to talk, I'll talk a little bit about it. Unless you got like some direct questions.
Why don't you introduce it, and then I do have some follow-ups on it.
All right. Well, back in February of this year, Jason Wood, our vice president, figured it was time for me to increase what I do with the company. So he sent me down to the La Aurora factory, and I spent a couple of days in the fields, walking the fields, learning to identify plants by the way they look. The way the tobacco comes to a point will help you identify whether it's Corojo, Criollo, so on and so forth. So I spent a few days doing that and learning when to determine if the leaves were ready to be picked off of the stalk. I learned how to tie them up so when they're on the they're on the wooden stick in the curing barn. I learned how to put them on there so they hang to dry. I don't remember the exact Spanish names for these things, but then after like 3 days of 90-degree weather in the sun, working in the fields and ready to pass out, I spent a couple of days in the factory. And in the factory, I learned about sorting and how to tell whether or not a leaf is properly cured, properly fermented. And then I spent a couple of days smoking puros. And by smoking puros, like you take a Nicaraguan Corojo. You got Seco, Viso, and Lajero. So if you smoke a Puro Nicaraguan Corojo Seco, it's going to taste tremendously different than a Nicaraguan Corojo Lajero. So you smoke these leaves.
So Barry, I'm sorry.
Leaves.
So what you're saying is that you take the Nicaraguan plant and you take the Lajero leaves and you roll a cigar with just the Lajero.
Just the Lajero. So you could taste what that tobacco tastes like. Now, granted, like Manuel Noah, Jaime Garcia, all these people that do blending aren't going to do this step because they already know what the tobacco tastes like.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So for me, just to have an idea of what each leaf tasted like, which each variation of the plant tasted like, I spent the whole day smoking nothing but puros.
Yep. And you're creating your own flavor wheel at that point, right? And mentally associating, Yep.
Basically that. And then, I like let's say you like Nicaraguan Lajero, Corojo, and you like Nicaraguan Criollo, Viso. You take those two leaves together, you roll those into a cigar, and even though you like them individually, together, you might not like them at all. So you have to learn to play which tobacco works well together, and then you play with, when you do the blends, you play with percentages. You know what, we're going to use 40% Nicaraguan Lajero. No, that's too strong. Let's bring it down to 30%. So you play around with the different percentages, and I wound up rolling 8 cigars, and I thought when I picked my blend, they were just going to let the rollers roll them. But I wound up rolling 40 of them by myself, which was a nightmare in itself.
Mm.
And when I came back with the 8 blends, 2 of the blends stuck out. And nobody in the office wanted to smoke them. You know, they were razzing me, "Oh, you're just a blogger. You don't know what you're talking about, yada, yada, yada." So I got a local cigar store to smoke them, Neighborhood Humidor here in Miami. And everybody loved it. And our director of sales walked in while everybody was saying, "This is a great cigar. You got to release this. You got to do something with it." So at that point, Hector said he'll try one, but I had run out of cigars. So I had to get the factory to roll some more and send them to Miami. And from that point, we just decided to move forward. They saw that the blend was good. All the reps so far have been positive about it. We sampled it out at the Chattanooga Tweet Up. The response there was positive. Going back to my business partner in New York that I used to own a cigar shop with, you know, he has a cigar shop in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I'm going to be flying out to Santa Fe next week to do a soft launch out there and use Santa Fe as the next test market. And then hopefully sometime in the end of October, beginning of November, there'll be a full release, whether it's a regular release or a full limited edition release. That'll be to be determined. It'll be available in 3 sizes: Corona, Robusto, and 6x60. Corona because it's my personal favorite size, Robusto because that's what it was blended in, and 6x60 because as much as I like it, people want it. So,
Yep.
So that's
And
the
I'm
story.
sorry.
Of
So
Kilo.
Barry, so what's the name of your new? Is a
It's called Kilo.
Yep.
The name came to me by watching the movie Cocaine Cowboys. It's a sick, twisted homage to Miami, which was built on the cocaine trade of the
It's
80s.
true.
And
Scarface, man, classic.
yeah, so that's it. But originally, I was going to do the boxes to look like newspaper. I was going to have the band look like duct tape. I was going to make it look like a brick, a true
Yeah,
key.
yeah.
But I figured, all right, that's too gimmicky. I don't know, but I
Might
really
have a
was
difficult time going through customs.
Yeah. I mean, bad enough. I got to bring the cigars to Santa Fe, so I'm gonna be, I'm gonna have a suitcase full of like 50 kilos. I got to be careful who I say that to in the airport. But we wound up doing it in the shape of a gold brick. You know, a gold bar is stamped 1 kilo because a gold bar is 2.2
yeah,
pounds.
nice.
So the box will look like a gold bar, which at an event should be pretty cool. If we have like 40 boxes on the table and we stack them like gold bricks, it should have a good visual effect.
Right.
Yep. And for our Stogie Geeks listeners or viewers, if you go to episode 65, it's featured as one of my smokes of the week. So you can check out what it looks like.
Excellent.
Thank you, Coop.
Will, did you have any more questions for Barry?
Yeah, actually, Barry, can you tell us about the blend?
Yeah, it's a Sumatra wrapper from Ecuador over a Cameroon binder. There's 4 different types of Lajero. Well, 3 different types of Lajero in the filler. 1 from Nicaragua, 2 from Dominican Republic, and there's Pennsylvania broadleaf. So to say it again without any fumbles, I wonder what the jet score is. But anyway, to say it without any fumbles, it's Sumatra wrapper, Cameroon binder, 2 different type of Dominican Lajeros, a Nicaraguan Lajero, and Pennsylvania broadleaf. Now I'm talking like Porky Pig. Whatever.
And Barry, we talked a little at the show about this, but it was interesting because you kind of had a goal with this particular blend when you were making it in terms of the type of cigar you wanted to do. Can you tell us a little about that?
I wanted to do something at the La Aurora factory that didn't taste like a La Aurora cigar. There's certain traits that come out of the La Aurora factory, that come out of any factory. Like you could smoke a cigar and, you know what, that has the pepin spice. You know what, you smoke a La Aurora cigar and you go, you know what, that has the characteristics of La Aurora. So, like, I didn't have the opportunity to pick any cigar factory around. I was limited to the La Aurora, which probably would have been my primary choice because they have a lot of tobacco. Their encyclopedia of tobacco at this factory is insane. I mean, they have tobacco from Cameroon that's like 20 years old in their inventory.
Can we get some cigars with that as the wrapper?
You know what? I've been trying for that since the day. I was even in the factory. I said, "Come on, Guillermo, let's roll one cigar, one for you and one for me." He's like, "No, save that for a special project." All right, what's the project? I haven't decided yet, but I'm saving it for a special.
Right.
But I wanted to create a cigar that didn't taste like a Guillermo Leone, that didn't taste like a 107, that didn't taste like a Preferito. I wanted people to smoke it and go, you know what? That's Kilo. I didn't want people to go, that tastes like a Pepin, or that tastes like a Padron, or it tastes like a Fuente. I wanted the Kilo to taste like a Kilo. So that was my goal with it. Most people I give the cigar to, they think it's Nicaraguan. They have no idea that it's Dominican.
I find it's interesting, Barry. It's funny you say that we all kind of have this preconceived notion about what Dominican tobacco should taste like.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of cigars. Well, not a lot, but there's a percentage, maybe 25% of the cigars that come from that have Dominican tobacco in them. That you're like, wow, I can't believe this is Dominican. So it's really, I think, a lot more well versed than people think. Would you say that's true?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fermentation processes put in place at the factories. Like, I think if you take a Nicaraguan leaf and you ferment that leaf using the processes that a Nicaraguan factory uses, is going to make it taste more like a Nicaraguan leaf.
Right.
If you take that Nicaraguan leaf and you use the fermentation process that's used in a Dominican factory, I think it'll take on the traits of that factory or that country.
What differs in the fermentation process?
That I can't really go into because there's so much industry secrets involved in it that I don't even know the whole story about it.
No, it wouldn't be an interview here on the Stogie Geese if we didn't push the limits and get someone to not answer our questions. Yeah. That's good.
I just think just the two schools of thought. I mean, like the Garcia family. They grew up in Cuba. They brought a lot of the Cuban traits to Nicaragua, where the La Aurora family. They've been in the Dominican Republic since 1903. They've had their own way of making cigars since 1903. So you got two different schools. You got two different educations on the way a cigar should taste. Like when I go to the factory in the DR, I'll bring some Nestor Miranda stuff with me just so I have a little bit of diversity to smoke, and they can't even get through the first 4 or 5 puffs of a Nicaraguan cigar because to them it's not what they're used to. They're like, oh, I can't smoke this. I don't like it. Well, you know what? You've been around Dominican cigars your whole life. So it's two different things. It's like eating Italian food and Chinese food.
Do you think – yeah, I totally agree.
It's basically the same thing, but the way it's prepared makes it different.
Do you think that a lot of the cheaper bundle cigars that say they're from Dominican have kind of tainted people's thoughts about Dominican tobacco in some way, shape, or form?
I think the cigar boom of the 90s had so much stuff coming out of the Dominican Republic that hurt a lot of people's opinions of the tobacco. Plus, if you look at all the limited edition stuff, a lot of that stuff's coming out of Nicaragua. So the people that like that limited edition stuff, they've just gotten so accustomed to the Nicaraguan profile that they've stayed away from Dominican tobacco. I mean, with La Aurora, the Preferito, the diamond, the black tube, I'll put that against any Nicaraguan cigar that's out there today, and I think it'll hold its own. But there are a lot of people who will go, you know what, it's Dominican, I don't know if I want to smoke it. Same thing with the La Aurora 107 Maduro. I think that's another great cigar that doesn't come off as your traditional Dominican cigar. And, I invite people to try either one. Contact me on Twitter. I'm on there as MCC Barry. I oversee the Miami Cigar account with Jason Wood. Let us know. If you think I'm full of it, tell me. But I think those two cigars will stand next to any Nicaraguan cigar today.
Barry, I know we're getting off the subject of the cigar you've got coming out, but with respect to limited releases, what is your opinion on the strategy of the different types of releases? So you've got a limited release that is truly limited, right? So you get the tobacco once, you roll 1,000 or so cigars or whatever the number is. You
Yeah.
release those, and it never comes out again. Then
Right.
you've got manufacturers that are putting out limited cigars, which are re-released. A year later, 5 years
Like
later,
a limited
whatever.
production.
They're limited production.
Right.
And in your marketing, right? So what's your strategy when you think of limited cigars? Which ones do you go with? Do you have a strategy with both, or do you pick one or the other?
You really have to let the marketplace dictate that. I mean, like Cien Años, when it came out to celebrate the 100th anniversary of La Aurora, that cigar was at the time the highest rated Dominican cigar of the year. I mean, it was number 2 in Cigar Aficionado. It was the number 1 rated Dominican cigar. And to this day, like before we released it, Guillermo would go to do events, or I'd do an event, or any of our reps would do an event. And people would still talk about the Cien Años.
Yes.
Now, here's a cigar that was a
special
limited.
cigar.
Yeah,
One of
now
our
here's a-
favorite. It's one of our favorites. I mean, I'm not just saying that 'cause you're on the show, right? I mean, we've talked about it time and time again on the show. It's a fantastic blend.
So in that case, we let the marketplace dictate that we had to re-release it. So we re-released it last year. It's tobacco from the same seed, but evidently, obviously, it's not the same harvest.
Right. Right.
So does it taste 100% the same as the original? Somebody's car alarm went off. So I think that was the warning that maybe I should shut up.
It's like a buzzer.
But like the Cien Años, like that's out now, to me is 99.9% dead on to the current, to the old Cien Años. Like if you took the band off and you smoked them side by side, you would have a hard time telling which one is which. So the answer is the limited edition was made with tobacco that was only available for that release, but the marketplace dictated that we re-release it. Is it the same as the original release? No, because it's a different harvest of the tobacco. It's just like a wine made in 2007 is going to taste slightly different than a wine made in 2008. The weather conditions are going to change, that it's just going to affect the overall taste of the cigar. It's going to use the same components, but there's going to be a slight variation. So when it comes to like the marketing and all that, you have to listen to your consumer. You have to give the consumer what they want.
So now you also released a Cien Años in a Robusto size with the Maduro wrapper on it.
Right.
How do we get more of those?
How's the market dictating that?
Yeah. So, let's pretend that the Stogie Geeks crew is the only market for that cigar. Can we demand more of those?
That's going to happen. They're eventually going to be made available to people that originally ordered the original Cien Años crates.
Yes.
When it happens, isn't set in stone. We discussed about doing it this year, but we didn't do it. We're discussing about doing it in the upcoming year. I'm leaning to believe that that's going to happen.
I mean,
is it 100%? Is it breaking news? Is it accurate? No. But there are very strong discussions where it is more than likely to happen.
So, I mean, that cigar, Barry, to me, was off the charts. I mean, we smoke a lot of cigars here on the Stogie Geek Show. That one was off the charts. What was different about that cigar? First of all, that made it so good. Second, that made it limited. And how are you going to be able to re-release it, if you are going to re-release it?
What made that cigar work so well was the blend of the Cien Años worked really well with the broadleaf wrapper. That's really all it was. I mean, it was the same blend. We just put a broadleaf wrapper on it.
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't even tweaked. We didn't change any percentages. We didn't change any leaves. Just the wrapper of the cigar changed the complexity of the profile. And I agree, it's a great cigar. And I haven't been able to get them unless I see them in the store. Because the only way Miami Cigar would sell them to me was through a crate. And obviously, I wasn't going to buy 10 boxes of cigars.
I don't know.
I'll say this.
We would have bought a crate.
I would have bought a crate. Now, is that the same wrapper that came out on the Diamond Preferido, Barry?
No, it's slightly different, and that goes to the fermentation process.
Because those were two very special Maduro.
Yes. Yeah, that's another one that sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the processing of the wrapper is basically slightly different in both cigars.
Got it.
That's good to know. Will, did you have any more questions, Mark Jr.?
Yeah. So Barry, is there anything as far as now looking ahead? I guess we're past IPCPR. Is there anything you could share with us right now that you guys are working on?
We have some limited edition sizes in existing lines coming out to various marketplaces. All of our reps got to say, we told them, all right, what cigar does La Aurora have out that you would like to see in a different size? So we're doing these regional releases that are the sales rep picks. um, Justin Sandlin, our Texas rep, is doing a limited edition 107 that's going to be called Fraternidad. It's going to be in a Lonsdale, which is a size that doesn't exist in that line. Up in the Mid-Atlantic states, Christopher Lenzo is going to have a cigar that's based on the diamond. It'll be a 6x58, and that'll be available only in his territory. Our Chicago area, we were working on an Exclusivo regional, but that was on the Nestor Miranda. That'll be a box pressed Nestor Miranda special selection, utilizing the same wrapper that's on the Dano 2012. So we have like all these little limited editions that we're putting in various sections, and we're giving our reps the opportunity to create. We got the Kilo coming out. La Aurora's already working on a couple of new projects, which I can't discuss yet for early next year. We got a few new projects we're working on for Miami Cigar. One of which is going to be a limited edition 25th anniversary that will be released in the beginning of the year. It'll be a Nicaraguan. It'll be a box with Nicaraguan and Dominican. The
Kind of like what you did with Nestor, right?
Right, but the plan right now is whichever feedback is stronger, the winner will become the regular release of the 25th anniversary IPCPR.
Cool.
So that's the working plan. Logistically, we'll have to see if it works out. But if the feedback is better on one over than the other, then we'll release one as the regular release. So that's pretty much what's in the being worked on for the Miami cigar portfolio.
Barry, what can you tell me about the La Aurora Gran Reserva Preferido 2003?
That was a cigar that was with a Corojo wrapper. All the cigar featured all tobacco from the year 2003. They produced as much cigars as they could at the time. There's a very, very small amount left. I wouldn't call it a limited edition because the production was high. Mm-hmm. But it was limited in the sense that once that 2003 harvest is gone, we won't be able to produce anymore. Mm-hmm. So the 2003 year harvest was a very good year for La Aurora. It had a very high yield, so they've been able to keep the production on that cigar going for a little bit.
Gotcha. And that was released at IPCPR 2011, from what I've read.
Was it 11 or was it 10? It was one of those two.
Okay.
I came on board in 12, so it could have been 11. Okay. I didn't go to IPCPR as a blogger that year, but I'll take your word on it.
Yeah, we haven't seen much published about that cigar. Of course, I'm probably giving it out now, but we are going to feature that cigar on the show.
Yep.
We have acquired some, so.
Very cool. Don't mind me, I'm sneaking a peek at the Jet score. I guess that touchdown that I saw them score earlier was overturned.
It was.
Okay.
Don't tell me the score. So
hasn't changed.
I won't tell you that it's 10-3.
Barry, was there any other cigars you wanted to talk about? Anything else you wanted to discuss as far as the topic goes?
I'd like to mention a few of the new cigars that we came out with this year at IPCPR. A lot of them are being shipped now. I mean, we had the La Aurora 107, which we introduced only to TAA accounts in April of this year. We released it to everybody else at IPCPR. Pretty much everybody that ordered it, those cigars are shipping. So everybody that ordered those should have those. We also did a follow-up of the Casa Miranda Chapter 1 with a Casa Miranda Chapter 2. Chapter 1 was rolled in Miami at El Titan de Bronze. Chapter 2 was rolled in Nicaragua. Eventually, I'm sure there'll be a Chapter 3 and a Chapter 4. Working with various factories that we've worked with over the years. But that cigar we finally took delivery on in Miami late last week. They got processed through inventory earlier this week. They're now shipping to stores. So everybody that's been asking me on Instagram and Twitter that have seen me smoke it, when's it going to be available? When's it going to be available? They're en route now to stores.
Yeah, the
And
chapter 1 is en route to stores. Or
Chapter
no,
two.
Chapter 1 came out a few years ago. Chapter 2, which is now available,
Okay.
that's shipping out to stores. They come in 15-count boxes. They got a good price point, slightly more than the Anoranza, but slightly less than the special selection. And those are an extremely good cigar. Of course, I work for Miami Cigar. What else am I going to say? But if you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, you'll see I've been smoking a lot of them. So, and also La Aurora retweet the Cameroon and Corojo blends to celebrate the 110th anniversary. I just brought them into the shop I hang out with in Miami, and they sold out in 3 days. They went through 3 sizes of Cameroon and 3 sizes of Corojo in 3 days. So
Nice.
if you see those cigars in stores, you'll be able to tell it's the 110th anniversary blend because it has a secondary band on the foot denoting the 110th anniversary. So
Barry, who do you admire most in the cigar industry and why? And you get bonus points for breaking outside of your own organization.
I'd like to answer that with a couple of people, if I may.
Sure.
First, Sam Lucia, who was originally with Nub, and now he has his own line, Lucia. I tell him this when I see it, and he gets embarrassed by it or tells me to shut up. But if he didn't push me to start a blog, I wouldn't be where I am today. Gary Yarst, may he rest in peace. If he didn't put me in touch with Miami Cigar, I wouldn't be here today. And Pete Johnson, who was probably the first cigar manufacturer to not treat me like a blogger, to call me up, hey, I'm going to be at Cigar Inn, why don't you come by and have a cigar? So those 3 guys I admire the most in the industry, mostly because of how they treated me. The one cool thing about the cigar industry, and I don't work in the soda industry, but I can't picture the CEO of Coca-Cola and the CEO of Pepsi, hanging together, drinking each other's soda. Like the cool thing is, like with the cigar industry, I could be sitting in a shop and Jose Ortega will walk in and he'll give me one of his cigars. I'll give him one of my cigars.
Yeah.
And we'll sit there smoking each other's cigars, just having a good time, laughing our asses off.
That's a great point.
So the family aspect of the industry as a whole is tremendous. And, I truly believe I'm lucky to be a part of it. So, I mentioned 3 people, but I honestly can't say anything bad about anybody in the industry other than maybe Coop.
Right.
As Coop's sitting there smoking the Anoranza in his Miami cigar shirt, which is hilarious. It's awesome. So, Barry, what is your most favorite cigar to smoke from your own blends and your most favorite cigar to smoke from other people's blends?
My favorite cigar to smoke from our blends is probably the Nestor Miranda Special Selection Connecticut. I got in trouble for smoking that cigar when it first came out. I got lectured that you can't smoke all the product. We have to. I think in the first month that it was in stock, I went through 14 boxes in a month. I mean, I was chain smoking that cigar because it's so mellow. The notes are so defined that it's the cigar that I want to smoke when I want to just free my mind and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
That, and then it varies from, where my mood is. Like now I'm smoking obviously a lot of Kilo because it's my own cigar. But the cigar I probably go back to on a regular basis is the Nestor Miranda Special Selection Connecticut. From outside online, available in the United States is different than available worldwide. I like my Ramon Aloni Special Selection.
No, that's a great choice. Nope,
choice.
I agree with that choice.
But when you're talking about the U.S. market, when I'm not smoking our stuff, I'll still go toward, I'll go to Tatuaje. I'll be honest with you, for every 20 cigars I smoke, 18 are from Miami Cigar. I just don't have the desire to smoke a lot of other stuff. And when I do smoke other stuff, it's because I saw the rep and we traded sticks.
Right.
But I'll still spend some of my own money on Tatuaje. every now and
What's
then.
your favorite
I'll-
Tatuaje?
Any of the brown label, the Tanos, you know, any of the brown label stuff I like. You know, it's probably one of the first cigars that I started smoking away from the generic cigars of the industry. The one that the cigars that everybody started on. So, you know, when I want to return to my roots, I'll smoke that.
Excellent. Barry, thank you very much for appearing on the Stogie Geek Show. It was awesome
Oh.
talking with you. You have a great
No
night.
problem. Thank you, man. It was a pleasure being with you guys. Hopefully, we get to do it again sometime next year when the
Absolutely.
follow-up to Kilo comes out.
Sounds
Absolutely.
great.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Take care, guys. Be well. All the best.
Thank you. You as well.
And with that, we'll take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk about our smokes of the week.